What is up, Iron Philosophers? Today we're going to be doing a bit of a community response video, but still educating you on how to make some gains. Recently, Natural Hypertrophy posted a video about what makes a good lift, and then gave his top 10 factors. He then challenged the big noble natties in the community to make their own lists, and Jeffrey Verity Schofield, and I'm not sure if a couple others followed up. Then I thought about it, I was like, hey, wait a minute. I'm a noble natty, I should make this video. Albeit I'm not a famous one, but I still got some gains to share with you guys. But before we get into that, subscribe if you enjoy this video, share your top 10 down below. I prefer comments over likes because I like talking to people and having a bit of interaction. But let's jump into it. Coming in at number 10 and the least important of my top 10, so that still means a lot more important than other things, is soreness. For me, soreness is an indicator that I might have a potential winner on my hands, because I lose soreness even from a new movement very quickly. I'm hitting these movement patterns multiple times a week, so even if I incorporate a new exercise, it doesn't always get me sore. And then we have those exercises that get me sore repeatedly, doing squats or RDLs. My shit is fucked up no matter what, and I know that is going to be a consistent gain giver, versus something like a different bicep curl variation where after 1 week I don't feel it or get sore at all ever again. I instantly like movements better when I'm sore the next day. So that's a psychological factor that I do have to take into consideration, because you work harder at movements that you enjoy more. But overall, I can't use soreness as a huge indicator of muscle growth, because the majority of the time I am not sore. I have to trust other factors, which you'll see later on this list, to be sure that I'm making gains. Although as nice as it is to have, I cannot rank soreness any higher on the list, because I'm not sore very often with how consistently I hit my workouts multiple times a week. And so I have to rely on the other things that you'll see farther up on the list to be making sure that I'm making gains. Soreness is nice, but it's not necessary. It kind of leads you in the right direction more than it indicates actual growth. And at number 9, we have the tried and true classic / if other people love the exercise. As much as I preach experimentation and find your own way, there is such a massive sample size of lifters out there. You can take from any community. Like I took the specialization that I'm currently doing with my biceps and triceps from the power lifters, even though that's completely unrelated. If they do bench squat deadlift, I'm doing preacher curl and tricep pushdown. Or from the noble natties. If I see some jack motherfuckers like them doing something and then they can back it up with logic, then I have to give it some credit and try it out myself. It may take some experimentation figuring it out, but the least I can do is look at other people who have lifted, who have experience, and combine all that experience, and then I have hundreds of thousands of years of experience to draw upon, and then all I have to do is synthesize that information to what personally works for me. I think that some people get too in their head. They look at all the information that's on the internet and all the guys from the golden era or the silver era, and they get stunned by the information. So then they find one guy that they like and they latch onto him, and then they follow everything that he preaches, or a certain modality like science-based lifting preaches, and they get stuck in this headspace where they can only see what that person or that modality is doing and only do it themselves. And that's really sad and limiting, because lifting, with all its variety and all its experience and all its anecdotal evidence, is a lot of fun. It doesn't get old unless you let it get old. As for me, there's a lot of classic bodybuilding movements that didn't click at first. I was growing throughout high school and really didn't get muscular for a while, and was then super lanky at one point. So some movements like incline bench press and pull-ups just didn't really feel that good. It took me years to come back to them and be like, hey, you know what? This is a solid ass exercise, and now I'm using them to make huge gains. But I didn't discredit them. It would be arrogant of me to think that I knew better than everybody who came before me and everybody that's out there now. I know better than some of those fucking dumbasses, but I can still learn something from them. Coming in at number 8, we have stability and cheatability. It is pretty well established that the more stable an exercise is, the harder that you can push the target muscle in terms of technical failure, because you have to worry about less planes of motion in terms of instability, and you can push a little bit harder. And I agree with this concept, and it is important when it comes to exercise selection. But on the backhand of that, there's the double-edged sword of cheatability, of how can I use body English to push this beyond failure, because with more stable exercise, a lot of the times you grind to stop at technical failure. But if you have room for a little bit of body English, you can cheat a couple more reps, providing that extra stimulus like pushing harder on a stable exercise. I think that these are two blades on the same sword that both are used to get hypertrophy. One is not really better than the other, and you just have variety when it comes to programming because they complement each other. For those stable exercises, you can usually target and thrash a muscle more thoroughly, but then those cheating exercises, you can provide that extra overload of maybe using a bit more weight than completely proper form for, 8+ reps would get you. Maybe you get 5 good reps, and then you cheat to 10 using that heavier weight, and that's another stimulus that grows muscle and should not be throwing away. And then you have exercises like the preacher curl, where you can do both. You can be extremely strict, have that stability, and crush it and destroy that muscle, and then use cheating reps later on to just get a little bit more out of the exercise. And those exercises with the most variability in how you perform it are some of the best and can be in your program for super long times because they can never get boring. You can always switch it up somehow. And number 7 is convenience, ease of setup, SuperSetability. I do 36 sets of upper body work in an hour and a half on top of working full time, on top of YouTube, trying to make videos for you guys so you can get as jacked as I am. Okay, that's a little arrogant, but on top of my life. So I don't really have time to set up the perfect iliac lat pull down on the cable station and get the fuck into everybody's way while I'm trying to superset it with something else. Sometimes you just gotta pick an exercise and do it good enough. You're gonna get like 90% of the results and save yourself a headache, and also just, oh my God, get the fuck out of my way with those stupid ass exercises. And this also applies to making room for other people in the gym. I will pick a worse exercise over my favorite machine in a busy gym, so I'm not hogging everything. Luckily enough, I go out late at night and that's not really a problem, but I'm going to be conscious of those other people around me, along with, do I have to lug over a bunch of plates? This goes for heavy exercises too. I don't always want to do fucking leg press because I have to put 700 pounds on there if I'm doing anything less than a set of 15, and that's not very fun to unload, especially after you do a set of failure leg press. You're not feeling too good and you don't want to move those plates. At the end of the day, if you learn how to target your muscles, you're going to get a good stimulus working hard and going to failure with pretty much any exercise. It will turn out to be like 90-95% of the results of your perfectly biomechanical exercise sent from the heavens of Jeff Nippard to bless your lat. And also it promotes learning. When shit gets fucked up in your program and you have to try something else, or you need to switch it up on the fly, well, hey, what if you discover something new that you really like, or you can't manage to do a certain exercise that you really love on another day, and it forces you to rework a different day to fit it in, and you learn something during that process. Sometimes change is annoying in the moment, but then is really beneficial like next week when you figured out something that gets you more gains. Number 6 is it progressible, not only with the weight that you can put on, but also the carryover to other lifts? And then is it an intuitive movement that I don't have to really think about every rep and I can fall into a rhythm with? When it comes to being progressible, this is something that doesn't really matter until you get a bit stronger, because maxing out a machine after 2 weeks of using it, sets of 20 to 25 are not going to last long after that. When you're a younger lifter, or not younger lifter, but younger in lifting age, it takes a while to get to doing 5 plates on a chest press machine. But combined with the last point about ease of use, this makes it pretty much impossible to work that into your program, whereas something like dumbbells or barbells are essentially infinitely progressible, which is why they're staples. This also kind of ties in with the stability point, because you're not going to load a super unstable exercise heavy, so your progression there is kind of cut off when it comes to weight, and you have to find another mode for that exercise to be viable. And a point of progression that a lot of people don't think about is, does it progress other exercises. Because yeah, it's great to be able to load weight on this exercise and it's moving smooth, but what if it tires you out too much, or it creaks up your joints, or it doesn't have good carryover, which is the key word, to your other movements of related muscles? There's some exercises that usually just bring everything up and your program runs smoother because of it. Those are golden, and you should always take note of those and keep them in mind, because progression on one can lead to progression on another that feels like it's hit a plateau. This happened to me on my shoulder press. I was doing my seated shoulder press and I was slamming my head against 210 for the longest time, and then magically, out of nowhere, 215, 220, 225, 230 in consecutive weeks. I mean, my shoulder press was just kind of sucking, but the other exercises that I did brought it up, along with me implementing Operation Chalky Milk in terms of the bulk and getting some more mass. But I think the exercise that brought it up was my flat dumbbell press, because I switched from doing deeper range of motion to doing heavier weight with a little bit less range of motion and sticking in that resistance point of the resistance curve. And I think that extra weight stimulated my CNS and my muscles to be able to push heavier on my shoulder press. There you go. An exercise helped another exercise that was stuck, and banging my head against the wall wasn't doing anything. And the second part of this point is, how much do I have to think about it to get into a rhythm? A big part of my lifting is the rhythm that I get into a set, because I can feel my body flagging and becoming weaker as I go on, and my breathing changes throughout that set. And if I'm having to think too much about, okay, am I at the right angle here? Is it hitting this exact chest fiber? Oh no, I have to press a certain way or else I'll end up hurt. That is getting in the way of me pushing hard as fuck and just tearing the shit out of the muscle for gains instead of avoiding tearing it for injury. I really care about how my sets feel and the repeatability of it. My sets should all kind of look the same even if the reps vary, and that comes down to, I don't have to think about the technique after I learn it. I just have to groove and get in the rhythm of the exercise. And number 5 is range of motion / stretch factor. As much as I shit on the science-based crowd, I'm a huge believer of the deep stretch and full range of motion, full active range of motion. The top of the pullover or something doesn't really matter that much. Instead, I think it's more exercise dependent, and you need to attack something with its strength. Take, for example, the dumbbell press that I was talking about. I do full range of motion on the dumbbell press, going down to my chest, but I choose to use heavier weight as my main driver of hypertrophy on that exercise. And in contrast to that, something like the ring push-up, a less stable exercise, something that you cannot load quite as much, I choose to use range of motion as my main driver of hypertrophy on that exercise. Extended range of motion, unlike the dumbbell press, where I could go below the shoulder joint, but then I would have to use less weight and I would get less active time in the top of the resistance profile. And so that is where it ties together with the other factors that I've talked about, both in stability, range of motion, and then what was the other one I was talking about dumbbell press? Man, that was like the last point. How am I already forgetting this? Am I going senile? I'm 22. Progressable. That's what it was when it comes to talking about weight. This is a tangent. Is this going to make it in? I mean, if you made it this far in the video, you're watching this shit. So back on track. The cool thing about at least these two exercises is that you can swap it pretty easily of what the main driver of hypertrophy is. If I turn that dumbbell press into a fly press, I can get deeper, focus a bit more on the fly motion, and then use the press to drive up, and then stretch becomes my main driver of hypertrophy. Or for the ring push-up, if I use my grip as this grip instead of the RTO grip, is this supinated? Pronated. I'm like a fitness guy and I talk about fitness, but I still fucking mix them up. But anyways, if I use that grip and I throw a weighted backpack on, now the main driver of hypertrophy is the weight. It's not the main driver, but it's kind of what you're focusing on for progression, I would say. I do think that for the best muscle growth, you should play to an exercise's strength, but I am a fan of variety, and switching it up can be really fun. It's really cool to do a weighted ring push-up, but I also believe that regional hypertrophy is a thing, And so you should be targeting these muscles in all sorts of positions. And what I mean by that is that operating in the stretch is not the end all be all. Shut the fuck up, Milo Wolf. It is a function of the muscle, not the function of muscle. So you should do non-stretch based exercises like my concussion curl that I came up with, where it is purely shortened biased and you're putting your elbows in this wacky position because you can. You should just not follow along with these studies and be like, wow, I feel a stretch, so it must be growing. Of course, yeah, you should use that stuff. But also, what about those tried and true classics that I talked about in point 9? I'm getting dementia too. Shit. Like, I do full range of motion alternating dumbbell curls with a cheat as my form of stability, I guess, or the alternate to stability. And science would tell you that's a pretty fucking useless exercise because there's no resistance at the bottom. But you're goddamn right it grows gigantic biceps, and it's been being done for not centuries, but decades. Okay, yeah, maybe I do kind of hate the science-based stretch community because a point about how important range of motion is turned into how unimportant range of motion is. Range of motion and stretch is extremely important. Just use it in combination with other stuff, or else your joints are going to get fucked up and you're going to get less gains. But yes, always do full range of motion, at least. Except for when it's not functional range of motion because there's no resistance. Okay, I'm going to move on to point number 4, which is stimulus to fatigue ratio. How much do you get for what you give? So a little heuristic that I use is, do I dread that exercise week after week? Because it's probably a pretty good sign that it's not fitting well with the rest of my program. In combination with this is it affecting the rest of my workout and my priority movements? Some things you just cannot do every week, at least for me, or do a full 3 sets of them, like drop set leg press or Bulgarian split squats, where if you are pushing hard and you're really ripping it to the limit, I mean, the max I can do is like 2 sets before I'm fucking toast. Got all the stimulus I need, and I can barely then get through the rest of my sets of my other exercises. But I don't include those very often because of how tiring and how much they take out of me. But it's not always about high stimulus, low fatigue, as advantageous as that is. Sometimes you're looking for high stimmy, high fatigue, because you're looking for that nuclear blast to your muscles. Not just the target muscle, but fucking everything around. That's why we deadlift. That's why we squat. Because yeah, the fatigue's high, but so is the stimulus that you cannot give it up in one variation or another. These high fatigue, high stimulus movements bust the doors down. It's why you start with the squat. I also pair these high fatigue exercises with lower fatigue exercises in my supersets, because it acts kind of as more rest time before I get back to the thing that is genuinely taxing me. And also, this is why I prefer tertiary supersets, like for example doing side delts with a bicep curl versus antagonistic supersets, because on average you get a little bit less involvement and a little bit more recovery between your sets. It doesn't always work out perfect. You're doing triceps with back, which is still pretty tiring, or dips with curls, but a lot of the times you can get those shoulder exercises in, those forearms, those calves, those abs, paired with something else, and you get those gains, those extra gains that you would not have gotten if you just taken straight rest time, and you get to recover for your harder hitting exercises. I also think stimulus to fatigue ratio is dependent on where you are in your workout. For example, chest flies done first, it's our right stimulus and pretty low fatigue, but chest flies after bench press then turn into a very high stimulus exercise and a low fatigue. The way I envision my programming a lot of those times is taking those door busters like the squat, like the bench press, those big movements that hit a lot of everything, placing them first, and then as you go through the workout, incorporating movements that are less weight-based for hypertrophy, more stretch-based for hypertrophy, and more isolatory. And in the stacked position, I believe that you get kind of the most stimulus and you exploit the strengths of each exercise the best. Some muscles like calves or shoulders are pretty much high stimulus, low fatigue no matter what, because they're small and they're pretty isolatory in the way that you hit them. And so those ones, your advantage is that you can pair them with anything. It doesn't really matter because there's not a lot of interference and there's a lot of stimulus in its contained notion of working out. I'm rambling. I ran out of words. I don't know why I said notion. And number 3 is, does it feel good for my body / is it comfortable? Because injury risk is pretty much the shittiest thing that can happen to you in the gym, because it not only puts you back on gains, but then everything fucking hurts, gets in the way. Like, I got a cut on my hand, and this shit has been bothering me with everything I do. I'm getting excited about forearm training, and that is right where the bar goes when I do wrist curls. Even the smallest things, not even like a joint or a broken bone or something. Who breaks bones in the gym? I don't really think people break bones in the gym, but injuries should be avoided at all costs. And a lot of the times, shoulders, elbows, knees, hips, they can get a little weird on some exercises. So finding a way to either A, make an exercise comfortable, which takes experimentation and patience, like I talked about with those old school exercises, just giving them a little bit, trying something else, or B, abandoning them, because you know what? There's something that gets you 90% of the gains without the risk of snapping your shit up. Conventionally dangerous movements don't really scare me. It's usually people who don't understand how to do those and are lacking flexibility or don't scale up to it properly. That are the ones that either A, get injured, or B, fearmonger them. Something that I've had to be more conscious at as I've gotten freaking bigger and gotten gigantic shoulders is that my joints kind of operate a little bit differently. Certain things tweak my shoulders. I had to adjust my upright row grip because it felt different than when I'd done them in previous years. And these things just come with checking in with your body, not jumping into super heavyweight really quickly, and adjusting as needs be. I have a history of injuring myself doing walking lunges. Maybe I just kind of have a weakness down there, or it's just bad luck overall, but I avoid that exercise now. I have been bitten too many times, so instead I do the abductor machine and do that certain motion in a different way, like jump lunges or stretching instead. I'm done fucking risking it. And then the other point of comfort and does it feel good is the exercise itself, besides just how your joints feel, uncomfortable? Does the bench dig into your back? Does doing something kneeling hurt? Or is something digging into your butt when you sit on the certain machine because the padding is worn through? This affects your performance, because every time you're focusing on a different pain outside of tearing your muscles apart until they're screaming and that target muscle being destroyed, well, that's pain that's going somewhere else. Something that's not gain, something that's annoyance, something that's distraction. So if you can fix it, obviously do so, because that might be a good movement. But if you can't, it may not be worth it, because you're not getting the best out of yourself when you're distracted during a lift. There's all those hard guys who are like, pain is the name of the game, man. If it doesn't hurt, you don't know what you're doing. And like, they're right, but like, the right type of pain. Like, you don't shoot yourself in the leg just because you're like, oh, I'm so fucking tough, I stand pain. No, you go run an ultra marathon or something. Like, that's pain for purpose. Pain without purpose is just retarded freaking masochism. Don't know why you'd want to do that. Masochism is like choosing Bulgarian split squats. That's like good funny masochism, not like actual like, I fucking do this exercise because it hurts my back. And number 2 is, drum roll please, do I fucking like it? Does it feel good? Am I excited for it? Do I get a sick pump while I do it? I go to the gym because I enjoy going to the gym. For the most part, I like everything I do in the gym, and a big part of that is my exercise selection. So I care if I like a movement. If I don't go, oh fuck man, not this shit again. Who put this in my program? Oh wait, it's me. I have control of that. So yeet, out of here, in with something that I enjoy. There is a movement I enjoy for every single muscle group. And if I really am not training a muscle group and I don't like it right now, I need to roll the dice and pick something else, because there is no excuses with the thousands of exercises that you could do. It can be some of that funky, functional bullshit that you see online, but if it trains the muscle somewhat and you enjoy it more than the other things, and you really would just rather do that and check a box than get optimal gains, then make that decision. But you also do have to weigh it of like, hey man, how much do I care about growing this muscle versus my enjoyment? Because there is a balance there. There's something that you probably enjoy more and can also get gains with at the same time. I usually give that advice to people that don't work out very often or have a hard time with consistency, of just do fun stuff in the gym and work hard. But if you're watching niche YouTube videos, probably like 20 minutes in, I'm assuming that you care about gains a lot, so maybe don't go choose the funky functional fitness exercise. And also another point of this whole thing is that there's experimentation. You can't find new exercises that you like without trying something. I do like 40 to 50 different exercises every week between 5 days, whole lot of sets. Watch the DEMIGOD protocol if you want more information on that. But about 5 to 10% of that, 2 to 5 exercises a week, are experimentations. I'm trying something new. It's in flux in my program. And once I find something that I like, that becomes more permanent in my program, at least for a period of time. And then I'm on to something else that's intriguing to me. Sometimes chest training gets boring and I gotta kind of experiment, figure it out about that. And then bicep training is boring, but then now chest training is exciting because of what I discovered. And it's a learning process that actually makes me like the gym a lot of the times. Is not necessarily the lifts itself, because I'm fucking tired, all that, but ooh, what can we figure out to get more gains today? This keeps things really fresh and exciting. And I think liking the movements that you do, if not loving some of them, and being chomping at the bit to go and tear them apart, not just for, ooh, I can get really big muscles from them, but because you want to challenge yourself. You enjoy doing it. You get a rush of euphoria after finishing the set. That's super important. Not only for your consistency, but overall you're just like well-being and happiness. Not only from like a biological, psychological standpoint, but from like a spiritual standpoint of you feel complete. You did something you enjoyed versus it being like clocked in for the day. I guess I'll go do my bicep curls. Now, I know the other guys put this as number 1 on their list, but I have something a little bit higher because I think it's a bigger picture type of thing. And I don't always do things that I find fun. I don't always just choose what I like, because the thing that rides above all is coming in at number 1. Does it fit in my program? This really ties all of the previous points together and with some nuance in itself, because it has to fill a need. This could be a resistance profile of I'm doing a lengthened biased bicep curl because I already have my shortened biased or my free elbow curl picked out for the day. I'm not going to choose something else despite me liking it simply because I want to, because there's a slot to fill, because there's other slots for that type of exercise that I want to do, and it would more likely go there. The program keeps me on track and going in the right direction, because as much as I enjoy the gym every day, the thing that really keeps me hooked is coming back and figuring out more ways to make gains. And let me tell you, we can all say, oh, you go to the gym for enjoyment. You love it. Oh, it's all about the journey. I literally made a fucking video on this. But the thing that keeps you addicted is the progress. Learning how to move forward and break past your limits and discover new problems and then crush those too. And so that's why my program has to be number 1, because it balances all those factors that make a good exercise. And a lot of the times this leads to more enjoyment. Sometimes it's delayed gratification for your program. For example, level 2 of the DEMIGOD protocol. I have 2 chest slots open on your upper body days. And I love chest flies. I want to do chest flies, but I didn't have enough stimulus available for me to then do chest flies as my finisher. So I had to have 2 presses instead. And occasionally I'd throw in chest flies because fuck it, I wanted to do them. But then once I eventually got jacked enough, my work capacity grew enough to do level 3 of the DEMIGOD protocol, I implemented the chest flies. There was a reward in that, and they had a specific place. And that's kind of the basis of the DEMIGOD protocol, is finding that way to have all the exercise patterns available to you so that you pick the best ones, the ones that check all the boxes on this list, and the ones that you like a lot. And that combined with the program gives you not only stellar gains, but then an extremely enjoyable time in the gym. And the fun thing about caring about making gains and also balancing that with enjoyment is that if it was a good exercise, I probably would already be doing it, have it in my yearly rotation, or haven't tried it yet, and holy crap, I just discovered something new that is awesome. So it kind of all balances out with that enjoyment factor at number 2, because I have so many options open with the DEMIGOD protocol. I hit upper body 3 times a week, legs twice a week, exercise slots open for every movement. So it just has to fight for its bread. And if it doesn't make the cut, I mean, would I really have enjoyed it that much to make it worth it not getting those extra gains from an exercise that I already enjoy? It's the same thing as doing that perfect movement. I get some more gains for a little less enjoyment, or I get a little more enjoyment for a little less gains. It's kind of just a personal choice at that point, and I choose both ways. So I guess you could say this is both number 2 and number 1, and enjoyment is number 1 and number 2. But I still think program comes number 1. Back to rambling. But anyways, to sum up this point, my program keeps me on track and categorizes my needs, which then therefore leads to more enjoyment because my program flows better, my workouts as a whole feel good, and then I make gains. I'm a fan of exercise and lifting in general, and honestly, liking a specific exercise and combining all these factors is such a nuanced thing that just happens instantaneously in your brain that, you know what, a list like this, kind of useless. Go in there, enjoy yourself, and figure out what gets you big. Because at the end of the day, as I always say, it's a personal journey. So go fucking discover what you like to do and the program that's perfect for you and only you. Anyways, if you enjoyed this huge ramble of a video and the gold nuggets that I dropped with it, subscribe and leave that comment with your top 10 list. Thanks for Natural Hypertrophy and all the other guys for this idea. Really had fun. Maybe one day I will be a respected member of the Noble Natty Society and not just some schmuck in his room making videos in front of his bookshelf with an ice bag on his camera because it overheated from rambling too much. Wait a minute, I probably should stop rambling. Peace, I'm out, guys.